That's fine. Sorry, Mike.
Wonderful. Then thank you everyone for joining us today. I think you were all here, weren't you? At the previous one we did, which was where we covered more of the filmmaking side of it. So I think though, good practice just to go back through and introduce ourselves all again and kind of touch base on who we are and what kind of level we're at. So I'm Michael Travers. I'm the videographer for TeamBA, and I also do a good chunk of the editing. I've been making films in the kind of corporate and documentary and a little bit of narrative space for the past a little over a decade now. And today we're going to go through some kind of a basic editing kind of tutorial. I know I've spoken to several people that a lot of you guys don't have the opportunity to get the software onto your computers for various reasons. Okay, this is more a general philosophy around thing. We will go through, I will demonstrate on two programs. The program I use is called Premiere Pro, and that's made by a company called Adobe. Adobe is very industry standard. It does everything. You'll have heard of like the term photoshopping. That's because their product is called Photoshop. Like that's literally the name of their product. It's kind of like how we call it a Hoover, even though it's a vacuum. Um, we will then use DaVinci Pro, which is the one I recommended for everybody else. That is, I used that for around a year, and it's a very powerful software. And the reason I suggested it to you guys is because they have a version. Uh, Adobe is great, but it also does kind of cost far too much for the average person to really justify. And it's a recurring subscription-based model as everything is these days. So I really struggle to, in kind of good faith, recommend it unless you are part of a company kind of working full time on it. Whereas DaVinci has a free version, which is very powerful, and then a studio version, which is their paid one, which is about 200-ish pounds. And that that pro version is lifelong. Well, for now, currently lifelong. You pay once and it's continuously updated. But frankly, most of you would never need to pay and you would be just fine. So just to kind of fill you in, if some of you are confused, where I'm like, oh, why is he using one software and there was another software mentioned? We're kind of going over it. The truth of it is that most editing softwares are quite similar to each other. And in the time we have available, you wouldn't really ever be able to like fully know everything. I mean, frankly, I've been doing this for 10 years and I do not know even a fraction of everything out there. But DaVinci is a great and very powerful tool. On top of that, there is a wealth of resources available, which I can signpost you in some good directions. But frankly, if you typed in DaVinci Resolve, editing software, beginners tutorial, we're on version 20 at the moment now. So there's a fresh batch of tutorials that have just come out. So basically what I wanted to say with all that ramble is don't worry if one, you don't have the software in front of you, and two, if you're like, oh, there's no way I can keep up with all these button presses. It's not really the purpose of this. There's no way you would ever, it would be unreasonable to expect you to kind of know what's going on. So we're just going to talk through the general practice um, of editing and like what that might look like in effect. Um, Thank you for sitting through my little intro. Could I get everyone to just quickly introduce themselves? Paul, you're left on my screen, as it were, so perhaps you could start us off.
Yeah, Paul from Southeast CRP, Marketing and Communications Officer, background in TV, so I've done quite a lot of editing as well. I have downloaded DaVinci. I'm going to turn my video off in a second because I've got DaVinci on the other screen. So rather than keep it to one side, if that's all right.
Yeah, I'm also unfortunately going to be doing a bit of this. Yeah,
fine. You all know what I look like anyway. And also, if I have to disappear, it's because I'm expecting an urgent delivery of some posters for an exhibition at one of our stations, and it's arriving sometime this morning. So the doorbell's about to go. So I will be here, and I'll be paying full attention.
No, I appreciate that, Paul, and it sounds like you've got a good grounding. Yeah. So brilliant. Hopefully this is still valuable to you. But yeah, by all means, if anyone has to dip out, that's don't feel we're all adults here and we've all got stuff we need to be doing. So next, Tom, you're underneath me. Do you want to go off there?
Yep. Hello. So Tom, I'm from Platform Rail. I'm based in Worcester.
So I'm a learning development officer, but we're currently working on a project, particularly looking at careers and making short videos to introduce different careers in rail to prospective students and the future generations. So that's what I'm here predominantly for. Bit of background in editing videos on a kind of basis for, I used to be a primary school teacher and I was the one that always had to do all the technology stuff when it got shifted. So I've dabbled, but I've downloaded DaVinci Resolve. It's on the screen next to me, but yeah, it's all completely new to me. So it will be a fun learning experience. So thank you.
Wonderful. Maddie, do you want to go next?
Mike, this is my lovely new laptop
Ooh,
that was upgraded and bought for me specially to power editing software, and
brilliant.
it's gone kaput,
Oh no.
which will not let me download the software because it hasn't got a big enough memory. So
Mm.
I'm slightly annoyed because this literally died on me last week. They've been trying a few days to fix it, given up. I've got to send it back. So I have not got the software, not for want of trying. And so, yeah, so I'm the same as Tom, if you like. I work for the South East Community Rail Partnership, but we are working with Platform on this careers project. So again, a bit like Tom, I've done a little bit of editing, about 3 short little films now, but want to do more. And, you know, now I've got the kit, but just, it's not working. So that's me.
No worries, no worries. I mean, thank you for trying. I know we were emailing back and forth, and like you were definitely really keen to get on this. So I appreciate you turning up even in not ideal circumstances. Catherine, would you like to take us forward?
Hi, I'm Kath. I work at Southeast CRP with Maddie and Paul. Like Maddie, I'm an education officer. Was a primary school teacher, but I have absolutely no background whatsoever in film or editing. My daughter did a degree in it, so I just let her do anything that I hand it over to her, I say.
Best option.
Oh, absolutely. Like Maddie, I have an old laptop and a new laptop. My old laptop doesn't have enough space in it, and my new laptop just said I had to sign in and get permission and all sorts, so I'm afraid I gave up too.
I completely understand.
I
Don't
did
worry.
try.
Don't worry at all. And then is it Erin? Is it?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Erin from Community Rail Network. So I'm the Communications and Marketing Officer. So I do a lot of our social media and our website, our bulletin, our resources, things like that. And I've done a bit of video editing myself in various jobs, mainly on Canva. I've done a little bit on Premiere Pro, but this will be really good to see some more software and get some more tips and tricks for how I can make more videos for Community Rail Network, but also help more of our members make their own
Brilliant.
videos and stuff. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you all. So it sounds like there's a mix here, but there is at least some kind of for the majority of people, I've got some familiarity, which is really good. As I say, I will because I use Premiere and that's what I can kind of chat and talk to as I'm doing it. I'll start by kind of showing my process, and then we'll move on to DaVinci, and that should give you an idea of that they're actually quite similar, even though the interface is a little different sometimes. Basically, if you can do something in one, you can probably do it in the other software. I would say, industry-wise, there are a few kind of general main options. Premiere is widely used, and it will be used from everything from big movies. I think Christopher Nolan's like Batman trilogy and all that was edited in Premiere and things of this nature. So it's powerful enough to do it at the highest level, but it's also used for all of us from kind of top. You've got DaVinci, which is the software we kind of mentioned, and we'll take a little look at afterwards. And DaVinci started as coloring software, and that coloring and being a colorist is a specific part of the editing process. And he's actually one of the kind of paying and more niche elements. It's a very specialized skill set, and we will take a little bit of looking into it, but I would think for the most of you, it's a bit too deep. I mean, frankly, I've been doing this for over a decade, and I am not a colorist. I can color, but it is the deeper you get into any kind of industry, the more people niche down. So, but that's where DaVinci found its kind of big commercial use, and then it kind of grew over time. And I would say about maybe 5 years back, it became actually genuinely considered like a competitor, mostly due to their pricing structure. And so, as I say, for everyone, I appreciate this can be a very expensive hobby. It's like gesture to my ridiculous amount of kit that I really shouldn't have bought. So DaVinci is, if you guys get familiar with DaVinci, uh, it's not, there's no compromise there, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Like if you can feel pretty confident that you could, the highest levels of this industry use DaVinci. The other two options, slightly more niche, I would say, would be Final Cut, which is Apple's own proprietary software, and that has a very die-hard fan base that absolutely love it. I would say I feel that it's less popular these days, but that's not to say it's bad in any means. I just feel that I think the kind of narrative has shifted a little bit, and people don't to be recommend it quite as often, but it's out there. And if any of you happen to be on a Mac, it would certainly be a good option. I myself am on a Mac, but I'm using Adobe. And the final one, which won't really come into this, is Avid. And Avid is used, I would say it's like the highest end. It's one of the older systems. I mean, all these have been around for a while. I have worked on a few projects where they were edited in Avid, but I myself have never really worked with it. It tends to be used in bigger production houses, proper full suites where you'll have like multiple people working all on one project, TV shows of this nature. It's very powerful, but is a bit like anything niche and expensive. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend looking into it in any capacity unless you were planning to go into maybe TV, which I don't think any of you are. So Adobe and Premiere are kind of what we're going to look at today. But we're going to try and talk this through from more like the beginning of the process to the end, because something I've kind of thought as I've been kind of planning this out is like I'm taking a lot of things for granted about like good practices that people might know. So I want to talk about, let's say we have just shot. So we've filmed something, we've got our camera out, maybe we've got our phone out, and we decided to offload it. Big thing that people used to make, mistake number one, be that they were trying to edit off the card. They maybe take their SD card out and put it in their computer. These days they might plug their phone in and try and offload. It's really important to focus on file structure. I think it's something that kind of gets neglected when you just do the odd project. We all, and I'll be real with you. At the end of projects, things tend to get a little messy. People do just throw things in, but cannot emphasize how important good structure and kind of being organized, how important that is. I would say, regardless of what software you're in, that is key to being able to kind of manage multiple projects over a good length of time. That looks a little bit like, and I will share my screen now and we can kind of start looking at some of that. But the main thing would be to offload your footage when you get it. So let me just share desktop 2. And yeah, lovely. Hopefully you can see this grassy, hilly background now. Is that correct? Wonderful. Okay, so apologies, I'm going to kind of be looking this way. Can you see this Finder window? Yeah, everyone can see that? Wonderful. So I have a hard drive, which is a SSD. That means it's a solid state hard drive. That, the reason that's important is because, as you probably multiple of you have noticed, you do require.
Mike,
Yes.
any chance you could make that slightly bigger on the screen? My eyesight's terrible and I can't see.
Yes.
Is
I mean,
that
don't worry about
possible?
it too much yet.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, please do also, everyone, please feel free to interrupt if you've got any questions. I can waffle with the best of them, and just because on my eye line will be slightly off here, it just feel free to shout out. Yes, so as multiple of you have figured out, you do require decent hardware to edit, and part of that is this is kind of like the weakest link in the chain, if that makes sense. It doesn't matter if everything's really powerful if you've got this one part that doesn't work, right? And a big part of that is the hard drive, the storage that you are going to put your footage on. So back in the day, these like mechanical hard drives, spinning disks, very popular, and we still use these for storage because they are effective and trusted and relatively cheap in the scheme of things. You can get a few terabytes for 100 quid if you kind of look around, and they're perfectly good for storage, and you can work off them. But especially projects get bigger and files get bigger, investing in a good hard drive is probably one of the most important things you can do. They're small these days and they're fast. So it's that solid state hard drive. Like the many brands make them, and they're not all that expensive. It's just once you start, especially if you start making lots of videos, it adds up.
Is there a size you'd recommend, Mike?
I think that there's no reason not to use Amazon, as most of these are all kind of produced the same way. I personally use two brands. I use Crucial, which is Crucial, and I think they are a very good. They used to be known as like the budget brand, but I really feel like they've actually stepped up in the last few years, and um, they've got these very small and fast hard drives. And there's Samsung, which I'm sure you're all familiar with the brand Samsung, and they do these small SSDs. And you can see that this is a old and small, like I say old, this is modern, but the old style of hard drive. And this is the kind of SSD. So they're smaller and faster, and because there's no moving parts, they're also more reliable. If you bump this whilst it's in, it literally is a spinning disc like a CD or a vinyl player, and you can quite easily damage them. Whereas with this is much more sturdy. And one of the reasons that's so important is because let's say these both cost the same amount of money, like £100 each, but that's not the value. The value is what's on them. So if it cost, you needed to get 8 people, you needed to close down an area, you needed to rent equipment, the value of the equipment of the footage actually starts being thousands of pounds, if that makes sense, because to do it again would cost you thousands of pounds, and all of a sudden it becomes like, oh, yeah, it's really worth spending that extra like £100 just to get something that is not gonna like kind of fall apart on you. For the storage, for the old style of hard drive, I tend to personally use Western Digital. That's the brand, and they have like their Elements brand. But I will say that if it's got good reviews on Amazon, you're fine, really. Most of these companies are all being built in the same. The products are being built in the same factories, and they're just like kind of labeling them different at this point. So if you go through a well-reviewed site like Amazon, um, even if you just use it to kind of select the product you like, and if you check Amazon for understandable reasons, you can go to their own individual sites. But once you've got your footage, it's time to put it on said hard drive. I would always say that the file structure matters. Tend to um, I tend to go in a date-based system, if that makes sense. So I'll make a 25 folder, and then inside that folder, I will break it down into my clients. So, for example, because of like what I can and can't show, I'm going to use TeamBA, which is our company's like content day stuff. So I've got headshots from 2025. I would have a content day from April, a content day from August. A content day, by the way, just so I say that is what we do once a month. We get together and have a full day of shooting where we'll put together like multiple like the footage from multiple videos, and then over the next month I can edit them. So and that's something you may need to consider with editing, is that the shooting can actually be quite fast, but the editing can take a bit of time. And I would always say budget more time for than you think, because if it's just you can edit it. But if you need to get back from people, it starts to really delay things. So always budget a bit more time. Now, I'm going to open up Premiere now. So I will go into our August, and I will, in fact, no, I will start it fresh so you can see the entire process. So hopefully once it pops across. There we go. Can you guys see that grey screen? Yes, lovely. Now I do appreciate, especially Maddie, not being able to see everything. It's tough. It's one of these where it does become quite difficult with the screen sharing, which is why I say don't worry much. I'm not trying to teach you what buttons to press here as such. I'm trying to just show you, guide you through what the process might look like. With DaVinci, I might try and get a bit more specific, but that'll be a learning process for me as much as you. So let's say I want to start a new project. It might ask me the project name. So I'm just going to call this test 1, and it's going to ask me the location. And for me, as I've said, I would always create a file, a structure, with everything that you were going to do in this project. So I mean, all the footage, all the photos, all the extra logos, all the, maybe even to the point of like specific fonts that you guys have. This could be stored on your computer if it's kind of more general purpose. But the reason I say put everything into one folder is because if you copy this one folder, you can send that to someone else. The thing with editing is it's surprising how often you pull in things from other places, and if you have to get anywhere, like the project file itself, you then need to source all those assets from all over your computer, and it becomes a nightmare. And I appreciate any of you guys will probably just be working by yourselves, if that makes sense, like, and you won't be sharing it. But there's a good chance that as this goes on and over more time, you might need to refer back to a previous project. Let's say you did, the Route 100 event, and then in a year from now, something you need to reference some footage from that. Having a good file structure, knowing that you can go, okay, so that was in 2025, and it was the Railway to 100 event, and it was, and you can quite easily navigate. Whereas just, filming day 1, that's going to mean nothing to you in a week, let alone a year, So a good organizational structure that makes sense to you. As I say, I find like just dates and project names works quite well, especially if you've got a continued recurring, either in our case clients or for you guys projects. But yes, get all your footage, get everything into one folder. I tend to you can still see my, yeah, that's correct. You can all see it. I'll tend to break it down into, say, like footage, and then within that I will have either, if it's one camera, all the footage, or if it's multiple different cameras. And then I would have a folder for music, which I'll talk about sourcing music in a second, but get all that. If you've got any logos, so I have these here because they're easy to copy, but what I could do is just copy that and put it straight into the content day folder. And once that's done, I would save and select to put the project file into that folder as well. So everything that you need is in folder. If you copy that folder, you have the entire thing. So this is now loading, / creating the files. Hopefully you can now see this, and it's kind of a big gray blank canvas. Wonderful. The first thing that it'll do, ask you to import footage. Now, everybody's space will look slightly different. You can kind of customize them in all the things. This is set up for my screen, but frankly, they'll often like it's then best to customize it to your specific needs. And by that, what I mean is that if you don't, for example, need to do a lot of captioning, then having a captions file like section is just kind of pointless. It takes place. So I would suggest that you kind of, as you learn more, customize your workspace. But for me, I will import. Now you can either import the media by clicking on it, or you can go in on a Mac, but I appreciate many of you are on Windows, but that would be your Explorer window. I would drag in whatever footage I wanted. I'll open up my footage folder, and I'm going to pull one clip in so it doesn't slow the whole process down and we have to wait here for it to load in. But here's one nice clip. Now, we've got the footage, click on it, and I can watch it. The next thing to do would be to put it into a timeline. The timeline is where you'll edit in the cutting, things of this nature. There's multiple ways to do it in different projects. You can either just drag them in, and often it will automatically create it, or you can right click and there'll usually be a create sequence from this clip. But we've got a timeline. Now we can scrub through. However, you can kind of see in this top left corner a little bit, we've already got multiple clips. And this is what I'm talking about with files, where if you don't too long, this will start to get very messy. So yet again, first thing I would recommend making some folders. These are often called bins. And the reason they're called bins is because this comes back to like old school editing, as in, you know, reels, film, and they would literally be put in like trash cans, like bins. You would have, this is where you get A roll and B roll, because you would have rolls of films and they'd be stored in bins. So there's a big legacy of terminology that comes from, at this point, like outdated mostly. I mean, some people still shoot on film, but I doubt anyone here is going to cross that bridge. So we'll stick to the purely digital side of it for now. I would start by creating a bin. I would call it sequences, or I'll do SQU, right? This is our sequence. This is the thing there. I'll pull that into here. I'll then create another bin and I'll call that footage. And then I'll pull this, the clip that we've kind of added to the sequence into here. Let's say I know I'm going to add another clip in later. So I'll double click on this. I'll go and find my footage and I will, here we go, a different thing. I'm going to add a random drone shot from project, just so you all know. Just so it's a bit visually distinct, so it's easier for you guys to see. And that is now, rather than, see how I've got my project folder, but in my footage folder, I have multiple clips. So wonderful. We've now got a clip and it's in our timeline. What's the next thing we're going to do? We're going to look at the clip. Now, when you've recorded it, there's a good chance that you were like, okay, I'm rolling. Whenever you guys are ready, action. So that means there's some dead space at the beginning, right? I will just actually play this just to make sure you guys can hear the sound. Is that, let me know.
Planning events less time consuming for our clients.
Yeah,
How do we do
wonderful.
that? That's a good.
So, okay. I know that there's some dead space here, and I can actually kind of probably even tell from what's called the waveforms down here, because I'm like, this is really quiet. So this must have been me opposed to fine. So there's two general ways to approach this. You can usually, on every software, I'll pull this into the middle here, grab it from the end and drag it in to where you think you need. But that can be a little different. So I'm going to undo that. You can, and I would always zoom in for this. There'd be different buttons for this, but there's usually either a dragging slider or plus and minus on your keyboard will often push you in. And you can choose to cut. Now I have set up shortcuts. So for me, it's C, but for example, DaVinci we'll get to, they have their blade tool similar to this, where I can click and cut, and it's Command B. As I say, you can customize all this sort of stuff, and I encourage you to look into it and customize it to your specific preference, because a lot of them, they're like, oh, it's Command Shift Alt B. I'm like, that's too much. I'm just gonna press B. I'm gonna chop it all down and make it as convenient as possible, because what they're trying to accommodate is the huge variety of possibilities that you might need. But you will start to learn very quickly the tools you want to use fast, and I don't think there's any need for like overly complex commands. But whether you use the blade tool, whether you cut it, or whether you drag it, eventually I'll press delete and that has gone. Lovely. So now the video starts here, but actually, if you'll look at this, there's blank space. So one of the things you'll want to do is make sure that this is the start of the video. I'll click on that and I will delete, or I can click the video and drag. I think you're probably starting to get the idea why I was like, I'm not going to tell you to do every little thing, because there's 8 ways to do everything. So the principle would be, you take your footage, you put it into your hard drive, you put it into a folder structure. When you import it into your project, you ensure that the folders are there. So usually the same, you can actually drag in folders, so it'll often mirror it, but you start to organize this. So I know if I come to this project in 6 months from now, that my sequence will be in my sequence bin, that my footage will be in my footage bin, and I'll be able to kind of easily get back into an edit from there. Now, once we've recorded something, we need to make sure that it's listenable, if that makes sense. Now, you can see there's two people on the screen here, and the way I recorded this was into a video camera with two clip-on lav mics, and I have it set. Basically, the left is one person and the right is another, and it's currently coming through like one person will only come in your left ear, one person will come in your right ear, because that's the way you can split the tracks. It's good practice when you're recording, but it's not what you want when you're listening to it. The way I would deal with that here is to copy the audio, and for me, I'll press Alt and I'll click, and that would just highlight it, and then I can drag down. And now I have two copies of this. I would then change the audio so one person is on one track and one person is on the other track. As I say, don't get too worried about I'm not sure what he's doing here. That's okay. And what I'm trying to get at is that once you've got it in and once you've chopped off the beginnings and maybe the ends, you're going to want to start to pay attention to the audio. So from an organizational standpoint, maybe I'll label this. So now I know that the orange is one person and blue is the other. I might then come to the end and go, right, this is where it finishes, because I can see it in the waveforms. So I'll then chop off the other end. That was another keyboard shortcut. That was W on mine, but as I say, you can customize that to everything. Now we've got two people. Can everyone see on player on the right this green bouncing?
How do we do that? That's a good question, isn't it?
It's called
well,
an
I'd say,
level.
first of all, there's nothing worse.
That is a visual representation of the audio that's coming through. If it's red, it's just a traffic light system. Red is bad, amber, well, you're getting there, and green is fine.
Them being 2 months away.
I set this in the camera to be around -12. It's weird why it's I'll just say 12, but that is the good advice. You kind of do audio at -12. Tom, you probably are familiar with that, I would think. Yeah. But for most of you, you're probably not going to get that specific. When you're recording, you might plug your phone in. Maybe you'll plug in a little adapter to your phone so it clips onto them. But phone will probably take care of that. So that's not something that's probably too important for you. But it's just good practice to know that, you know, if you were setting audio, you'd set at -12.
An event,
if it's in the green, you're good. If it goes red, it's too loud. I would then, and yeah, I am going to go a little bit more in depth because I think you're here for, you know, to kind of learn what people would do in my position. I have a thing called ducking, which is where you've got two people sat next to each other, and when one person speaks, it comes onto their microphone. But a fraction of a second later, it will actually come onto the other microphone as well. And this is fine. And in a short little thing, it's not too big of a deal. But there is a way to actually kind of avoid that if people are kind of waiting their turn back and forth. And that is to go into one person's thing and actually alter the audio so that only one person's microphone is active at a time. In a short scenario like this, where one person talks.
So, mate, how do we make planning events less time consuming for our clients?
How do we do that? That's a good question, isn't it?
What that does is it kind of avoids any echo, things of this nature. I personally think that's a bit too deep for what you guys will probably be doing. And it's probably not super necessary, but that is an example of the type of thing that you might learn to do. The more you do this, the more you'll want to refine it. Every project you tend to come across little issues, and in the solving of those issues, your skill set will expand. It is strange that if you go out with the intention of learning everything, you'll drown. I'm sure many of you are already sitting here going, I'm lost. I have no idea what's going on, and like all he's doing is chatting at me. That's the nature of the projects. There's too much to learn. So what I encourage you to do is not to worry about every little thing, just to kind of figure out one step at a time. And the amount of resources online to do that are prodigious. So let's say I'm just going to undo that, so we've got the audio back. we've taken the footage in, put it into the timeline. Maybe now what we would like to do is put some music underneath it. So I would go in, so I've double clicked on that. I would go to my file. I would go to the folder that I put this in. So for me, it's that content day, like I said. And I have a folder in here called music with a track in. I will just take a second to talk about music and its role within editing. Sound in general is as important, if not more important than video. If you've got low quality, maybe slightly out of focus, it's not the end of the world. Like you can watch that, it's not painful. But bad quality sound is almost painful to listen to. And if you've got an interview and you can't really see them, but you can hear them, well, then we just call it a podcast. But if you can see them speaking but can't hear them, it's useless. It's worthless. So if there's ever something you have to prioritize, I would prioritize getting clean audio. But on top of that, sometimes you really set the mood. This is, I mean, not to insult our own team, but like it's a bit of a dry subject. You know, like we're talking about running events and things of this nature. It's not that emotionally evocative, and especially in the carousel that is online media, it's really hard to get people's attention. So one of the best you can do is set the tone with a bit of music. So here is the music. You can probably see the wavelengths now. I'm going to play this. This will be probably quite loud, so bear with me. Someone will have the person that created this track will have made it as loud as possible without it breaking, right? So it goes right up to the limit. And so that gives you the most flexibility, but it should never have clipped, which broke, actually gotten too loud. I would take this file and I would drag it underneath. So you can kind of see there's these layers, yeah? You've got audio level 1, audio track 2, and audio track 3. And this is also why I color them, because I think visually it's much easier to keep track of. So we've got this green track here. But if I play this now, I bet you can't hear them. Yeah, again. So what are we going to do about it? Few options. There's kind of what I did before, which is where you can drag the middle clip and pull it down. I'll make it much quieter.
I think it's really important to everyone that's involved in the.
Or you can, by right-clicking in Premiere and going into the gain tools, you can set it that way. Doesn't matter because, as I say, every project is different, as in every software is different, and if you're using DaVinci, it works slightly differently, but we'll get to that. Let's say we're happy with that. We can hear them, and there's a bit of music now.
Being 2 months
Easier
away
to
from
watch.
an event.
Okay, wonderful. Maybe we need a little bit of text just to say what's going on. In Adobe, I would hit the T button, which is the text button, and I might just type TeamBA. For me, I have a properties window here, and it would let me change the color and perhaps the font size, right? Now, there you go. Isn't that an interesting bit of graphics there? But hopefully you kind of all get that you can put whatever you need to. So you might put Q&A, you put you might put people's names, you know, Ben Dalton, Luke Bowden, you know, just to kind of add context. You can kind of see here that it's layered, and the way I think of this is almost like a collage. Like if you take pieces of paper and stack them on top of each other, whatever is on the top, you're not going to be able to see through it, are you, to the bottom? So for me, hey Tom.
Just a quick question regarding adding text.
Yes,
you know,
mate.
you said about putting your own files for the different text you might have, particularly for branding.
Yes.
How does that go into the software?
So there's 2 versions of that. This text is actually generated within the software. But let's say now in a slightly bigger team, you've probably got branding and logos coming from your clients, right? So what you have to think of that is it's just more video, if that makes sense. So I would import I'd go into my folder where you'd have your assets. So as I say, like I'm in my TeamBA, I'm in my social content, and then I would pull in, for me, this is our CTA, our call to action. Call to action is what you want every video to have at the end. It's what you want the person to do. Oh, I've just watched this video. I would love to get in contact with, oh, who are they? TeamBA. Wonderful. I would drag that in and I would put it at the end. In fact, I'm going to chop this down, make it all nice and short so it's easy for everyone to see. And ignore that they randomly are talking and then it goes into this. I would do this. And you can actually see this is an interesting thing here. So sometimes, Tom, when you bring in text or assets or logos, they're the wrong size. Let's say this is filmed in a very high quality file on like a proper camera. And so actually this is, even though this is a high quality graphic, it's too small. There's a few ways you could approach this. There's something called scale, and you can just increase the scale. But there's other ways you could do it. For example, in Premiere, there is fit to frame, and it will just snap to where you want. But there's versions in every software where you can adjust scale. Because let's say you wanted to get creative with it. We have a person who works for us called Hanan, and she's brilliant with kind of motion graphics. And what that means is that she'll do stuff like this that I'm not expecting you to do, but where she'll set what's called keyframes, and then she'll make it bigger, and then she'll set like another keyframe, she'll drag it around, and now it's actually like slowly zooming in. That was a bit like subtle. That is probably what you would do, but let's just make it really too dramatic. And you can kind of see that like now it's like zooming, right? But all that is done with exactly what we just did about the scaling tool. So Tom, with regards to the text, if you generate it inside the project, it will be automatically kind of held in the project file itself. Kind of like a PowerPoint where if you can add things to it and it's encapsulated in the file and the file just gets bigger. Or your text and assets can be external, in which case they're just viewed as more video clips as if you film them on a camera. And in much the same way that this is layered on top, what I could do with this, and here's something I'll do here, I'll delete this bottom bit because there's actually no audio there, so there's no need to have it. I could drag this on top. And what you can actually get now, and this is what like cutaways would be, is where, think of it like the layers of paper, yeah? You've got your original first paper, that's the interview, and then we slap another piece of paper on top, and that would be the logo at the end.
How do we do that? That's a good question, isn't it? Well, I'd say first of all,
you can't see the first bit of paper because the second bit of paper is on it. But once that piece of paper is taken away or finishes,
definitely
it goes back to the original piece. Does that make sense? Like layers on top of each other, like, you know. So, and this can build and build and build. You could take this TeamBA and put it over here, and then for some reason you have TeamBA on TeamBA on TeamBA. You're never going to want that, but you know, you can kind of see that if we wanted to, we could kind of build this up a little bit more. We could add more. You could add more logos, more pictures. But for now, let's just say we're keeping it really simple. You know, I would imagine that most of you are going to be you're not going to be building hugely complex stuff at the beginning. What you're probably going to do is what we've done here. Get the footage, put it in the timeline, chop off the beginning and the end where people are like looking awkwardly at the camera. Maybe add a little bit of music, make it a bit quieter so you can still hear what people are saying, and maybe add a bit of text, or possibly at the end of it, a logo, right? And then once done, once you're happy with it, you would be time to export the video. Because right now, the video is almost like just a concept. Does that make sense? Like it doesn't exist anywhere. We've just kind of like labeled it. You can kind of think of this would be, what we're going to do is export the video. And that would be the equivalent of like when you finish your Word doc, you hit print and you get like the hard copy. That I would be in this software, file, export, media. It's slightly different in DaVinci, but we can look at that if we need to. I would name the file. So for this, I'll just call it test1. Then we get some presets and formats. There's kind of this in everything. For most of you, I would suggest just going and finding like a YouTube preset. But I would always go match source, which is basically I'm telling it to export it same file that the same format that I created it in, because I will have set this up and kind of chose what I wanted. But there are many, many, many different ways to go about it, many different codecs, and this is kind of the wrappers that your video will be put in. But as I say, I don't think this is necessary for you guys. I would just say that export it in the format that it was created. Or if you know it's going to a specific site, YouTube, Vimeo, TikTok, things of that nature, that you could do that. I think like in these presets, eventually you get down, there's Adobe, Vimeo, Apple, all these kind of things. None of that really matters. None of it's going to be important for us. But what I'm letting you know is there are many, many, many options when it comes to kind of exporting. You could export just the audio, you could export just the video. I am also going to set it to a destination. For now, for this, I'm just going to select my desktop and I'm going to export. It will encode and render. This will take a little time. It's not a huge video, so it won't take too long, but I'm also using quite a powerful computer. And if you're using a slower computer, it would take significantly more time. And this is one of the things, right? Something the bane of your existence will be where you've exported a video and then someone will go, can we just change that one word? That shouldn't take any time, should it? Because it's just the one word, right? But you have to now re-export the entire video. So the longer it is and the more complicated it is, that starts to take a lot of time, which is why it's really important to get feedback in one go. So submit it, get all the feedback in one go, do all those changes, re-export it, onwards and onwards. Luckily, you can do stuff like this now with Zoom, where we can just share the screen and show, and did you mean put the video here, or did you mean put the text here? And that can save you so much time when it comes to like big exports. But let's take a look, right? Let me pull it in as it's, I think, on my other window. But here is test one just created. And if I pull it across onto this window, can you all see that? Lovely. So if I press play.
So mate, how do we make planning events less time consuming for our clients?
How do we do that? That's a good question, isn't it? Well, I'd say first of all, there's nothing.
And we'll just go through, and then you've got TeamBA at the end, and it's exactly the length that we set it to. That is essentially A through Z how you create a video. I can only imagine that was a lot of information for you all to take in. I'm also aware that it has taken a bit of time. So, Paul, you just raised your hand, mate.
Yep, still with you. Just a couple of quick questions.
Of course.
Sometimes when a film on a phone, obviously we've got a long video. Is it better to import the whole thing and then view it and trim it in the editing software? Or sometimes you can just listen back on your phone, do a quick trim and save as a new video, so you're actually uploading the shorter file to start
So that's an excellent question, and this kind of comes down to a few. There's two answers for different philosophies with this, right? There is the kind of big style, which would be done for bigger productions, which would be you don't ever delete anything. It's called chimping in photography for some reason, where like you delete as you go. You never do any of that. You save the whole thing, you send it to the person, you never know what's useful, you never want to make a mistake and risk deleting the wrong thing. In the same way that you would never add, say, like noise cancellation, like wind suppression, or any Tom, you'd probably be familiar with like different, like, kind of limiters or anything. You would never do that to the onset. You would always do that after the fact. However, I actually think that may be the wrong answer for you guys. For fast-paced video, saving yourself time is hugely important. And if you're not on the most powerful of systems, the more you can do beforehand, Paul, which is like trimming off the excess fat, as it were, right, is useful. And I think that, like, if it's not huge, I would always just recommend leaving it and doing it in the big software. But let's say you were recording just hours of footage, you know what I mean, and you've got it on your phone. It might be worth trimming beforehand. I think if you've got the space to save, let's say you've got plenty of hard drive space, I'd say don't delete anything. You just get it all on there, get it safe. There's nothing worse. Like, could you imagine, like, you've done your big thing and you're happy, and then I'm just going to trim the beginning off, and like it goes wrong, and you like corrupt the file or it gets deleted or something. It's like, that's heartbreaking. And like, really all you did was like try to save a little bit of space. So I personally, because I have the privilege to have like enough space to just save and back up, I wouldn't do it. But I do appreciate if you guys are using maybe your own personal devices, there's only so much like storage on your phone. Yeah, it might just be a reality that you have to live with chopping it down. So this is no, but I also understand that in the real world the answer might be yes. So I do apologize, that is a bit of a wishy-washy answer. But if you've got time and resources, which I know we're all swimming in and have plenty of, don't delete anything ever. But in the real world, yeah, you probably get rid of the stuff when you're not, if you need it.
Okay,
Did you
thanks.
have another question, Paul?
Yeah, 720 or 1080 for export.
4K. I would say that it depends on the place you're planning to host it. I would say that the highest quality that you can like afford is worth it. That little video was shot in 4K. I would export it in 4K, and then I would upload it. Now, part of that is because every time it gets uploaded and re-downloaded and put somewhere else, it's kind of losing a little bit of quality. And so the highest quality you can get it there, the best it's going to survive. But that being said, for example, when we live stream things, I would never dream of live streaming in 4K. It's too much data, it's too much whatever. So that I would do 1080, maybe even 720. But to answer that question, I'd go 1080. At this point, if it's less than 1080, it's probably not even considered like high definition. That's not the end of the world. If the content is good, it could be in like 480, it could be standard definition. It's absolutely fine. The most important thing is that what's being said is valuable. There is kind of an old adage which is like content is king, which is it doesn't matter if it's shiny. Like you could have 8K footage in the highest quality of paint drying and no one's gonna watch that. But you can have low quality, as it were, footage, but if it's interesting and engaging, like the person on camera talking knows what they're on about, it's going to be far more valuable. And so I wouldn't sweat the specifics of like, oh, this doesn't shoot in 4K or 1080. If there's something cool happening in front of you, like there's a new event and you've only got your phone and your phone is a bit old. It's like, doesn't matter. Take some photos, take some video. It's okay. It's way better to show what's happening, even if it's in a lower quality. But if you can, always try and export in the highest quality you can. Where if that's 720, 1080, or ideally 4K these days. A lot of sites will also mess with your footage. So in the sense of like these days, YouTube just got in a load of trouble for basically they've been using AI to like upscale everyone's videos, even if they don't want it to. And there's a lot of people on there that don't care about that, and it's useful. If you're just uploading some like footage of like your mate's birthday party or whatever, you probably don't really care. Great, it's slightly sharper. But if you kind of have, if there's an artistry to this, there's a historical, let's say you're taking like photos of something that's like you want to like there's a nice old train and you want to make sure it's kept in all its detail. If it decides that it's going to start changing little things and changing details, it might look better, but the actual detail has been destroyed. And so what I'm getting at is if we upload lower end stuff now, the sites we upload them to will start messing with them. And so it's just another reason to try and get it to them is in as high quality as possible. Simply because once you kind of let it go, you don't have control over what happens. Algorithms, the compressions. We all kind of have probably seen this where like a photo gets sent too many times back and forth on like email chains, and by the end of it, it's just like really blocky and pixelated. For example, if you this might be really useful for you. I assume we all probably use like WhatsApp in some degree. If not, iMessage I think does something very similar. The sending of photos and videos and that, there is a setting which is low quality or high quality, and most people who send it, and myself with my friends, like just low quality setting. But we use in TeamBA WhatsApp as a way to like get behind the scenes footage from all our different like members. And if they use the low quality one, you could have the best camera / phone in the world, but the minute it's sent / upload, it's getting crushed down. And so that's another really like important example to like look at making sure that you are sending things in the highest of quality of standard, because if you've got the latest, like I think the iPhone 17 just dropped like yesterday, if somehow you've already got that and you're taking amazing photos, but when you send it to your friend, or you upload it online, it's already in a lower quality state, it's worthless, in the sense of like there was no point in having that new upgrade. So yeah, sorry, a bit of a waffle there, but highest quality is always preferable, providing you've got like the internet bandwidth to do so. Yes. Did anyone else have any questions? Because I'm aware that I have waffled for a good hour here. And
It was a
I did.
question.
Yes, go
Just
for it, Tom.
just based on that, what we used to, so I used to work for one of the largest academies, and so when we'd make a video, if we knew we were doing one of the kind of internal TED days where there was 1,000 staff
Yeah,
working on, we'd almost export a video of a smaller
yeah,
quality,
like a preview
literally
almost.
for that
Yeah,
event, but the one we'd put on our website would be of the high quality. So it's almost sometimes, if you know you're going to use it for two purposes, export a high quality one for everyday use. But if you know you're going to be doing streaming and things with it,
yeah.
it's almost worth exporting two versions.
I
Because
will
then you have
say as well,
control.
it's an excellent point, Tom, and I think something that you can even go a step further. When I'm working with projects, if I can. Let's say we added the text and the video and the music. You also kind of do that there, yeah. But let's say, classic scenario, in a year from now, somebody wants that footage, but they don't want the text. They just want to use the footage for another video. I will often export a clean version, which has no music and no graphics or text. It's just the person speaking and like, so it's clean as it is, if that makes sense. Yeah, there's no extra stuff on it. No, it's always best to probably like try and find the original footage, but sometimes that's just not possible. Whereas having a clean link that's in high quality that you can send to somebody, they can download from that. That's super useful. So I think, Tom, you're 100% right, identifying that there are different times and different roles for different positions. Are if you're quickly sending out drafts to a client for like review feedback, maybe you've got to send it up the chain. There's no need to send it in the highest quality. Whereas if people are happy and they're ready to lock it in, then yeah, like export it in like top quality. So that's the one that goes on the website and is gives you the best chance of it looking great. Yeah. Did anyone else have any other questions? No. Now I am aware. I think the call ends at 11. Am I correct in this? Or is it a bit
I
further?
think we're until 12, aren't we?
I can go to 12. That works a lot better for me personally. Like I was just like I kind of looked at that and went, oh damn, like I haven't even got to the Da Vinci stuff yet. No, that's fantastic. So, if it's 11, what I might suggest is if we just take a small pause here, I might just get a glass of water, and then what we'll do is take a look at Da Vinci Resolve now. We're a little more out of my wheelhouse, as I say. I use Premiere, and that's my kind of comfort zone. But in fact, maybe that'll be more useful because me muddling through it along with you might actually be kind of useful. So, shall we just meet back in a few minutes?
Yeah, that sounds
Brilliant.
good.
Okay,
Thank you,
wonderful. I'll see you all very soon.
Maddie, can I ask you something? I know we haven't been through DaVinci yet, but just out of interest, you mentioned about the project you're going to be working on, didn't you? About the video work for schools and stuff. Is there a software that you had in mind that you were going to try and use? Was it going to be DaVinci, or was there anything else?
No. So I've used something called iMovie for Windows.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm so glad I've had a go, because I don't know how Kath's coping, because I've at least a lot of what he was showing, it was like, yeah, I've done that. It looks slightly different, but I know the principle. Whereas if you've never even looked at it, it must be like,
yeah.
So I've used iMovie for Windows, but
Okay.
I was going to try and download DaVinci, but obviously slight laptop failure.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've got iMovie for Windows anymore. I'm not sure.
Okay. No, it's just good to know what everybody already uses or hopes to use. I've never used iMovie actually, but I tend to do everything on Canva. So I was just thinking during that, it's good for me to know.
I've never got on with Canva. For whatever reason, I didn't even know you could film edit in it. So
yeah, I mean, it's quite basic, but it's kind of just worked for what I've needed to do.
Well, I would say iMovie is basic as well, but
okay, maybe I'll have a
and I
look
still
at
don't
iMovie.
understand all of it. Yeah, it's called iMovie for Windows or something.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I'm just trying to think. Let's just see if I can.
Is that the same for you, Paul?
Yeah, can I just check? Do you have the paid for version of Canva?
We do for CRN, yeah.
Yeah, because we don't. There's all sorts of things about. We're a CIC, not for profit, but I'm not sure that we can get
Okay.
the paid version. So we've tended to use CapCut quite a lot.
CapCut, yeah.
CapCut's quite good for adding captions, subtitles. We
yes.
found.
Can I ask? Oh, sorry, Paul. I'm actually still talking.
Yeah, no. So I was going to say, so yeah, I've got a Mac at home, so I tend to use iMovie quite a lot.
Okay.
So I'm familiar with that. But I have managed to get DaVinci, and just so you know, Maddie, I had to ask PS Tech for permission to put it on our computers, because obviously it's new software, so they stop us putting any new software on. But if you ask PS Tech, they will add it to give us permission or come in and add it. So I have got DaVinci now on my SCLP laptop.
Or Paul, as it's being sent back to them, I might get them to upload it whilst they've got the laptop.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Mike, can I ask a quick question? Because so I have used iMovie for Windows, and so what you were showing on the screen was like, yeah, I can follow what you're doing, because I've attempted that. One thing I could never seem to do, and I don't know whether the DaVinci it does it without having an issue, is that if I wanted to put in another bit of footage before what I'd already put in that timeline bit, I could never make it work. I'd literally have to make sure I did it in the right order, otherwise I had to start again. So I
don't worry, you'll be fine. Yeah, I'll show you all that. Yeah.
So if there's a way around that in DaVinci, I'd love to know that, because I have to think about what I'm going to put where. Otherwise, if I've forgotten something at the beginning, I'd literally, for whatever reason, have to delete it all and start again. Which is
that is a very curious. I've never come across that before, but
that might be because I didn't understand the software, which is probably more likely.
Well, regardless, I can promise you that you can move things around in DaVinci, no issues.
Perfect.
So, everyone, you can still see the green screen. Yeah, everything's all good. Wonderful. So I'm going to now open up DaVinci. Well, first I'm going to close down Premiere Pro, because there's no point in having both open at the same time, as it will kind of drain the resources of my computer. No, that's fine. So I'm going to open up DaVinci. There we go, it's just loading. Something that might be of interest to you guys as well, actually, is that DaVinci is made by a company called Blackmagic, and they make several cameras and all sorts of equipment for the kind of film industry, and it's very good quality stuff. But they have just released an app for everyone's phones where it gives you full manual control and lets you kind of record in like very high quality kind of ways. And I'm not sure if it's compatible with everyone's phone, to be perfectly honest. It's the type of thing I've kind of haven't really looked into, because I've got all these cameras, but it's definitely something that might be worth looking into, considering obviously that the software will work well with DaVinci simply because it's the same company. You know, it's kind of, if you've got an iPhone, you might as well buy an iPad instead of like another tablet, because stay in the same kind of ecosystem. But if most of you will be filming on, say, phones predominantly, then looking into the Blackmagic phone app is probably like maybe an interesting shout. But yes, so everyone can see the screen, and hopefully you can see this grey box here. Yeah, wonderful. So it's very similar. What I'm going to do is go through kind of what I did previously, but we'll kind of work through it together. And I'm going to slow it down a bit. One, because I'll probably be trying to figure out where like the buttons are hidden, but also because I want you guys to have the opportunity to kind of like ask me questions as we go. If for any of you that do have DaVinci open, it'd be good if you could kind of go along. I'm certain the first thing that will happen is that someone will be like, it doesn't look the same, and it should, because I've just reinstalled it all and done it, but I almost guarantee that for some reason it never does. But here we go. We've opened up DaVinci. I'm going to hit a new project. I'm going to call it Test 3. I'm going to choose the location, and I'm going to put it, much like we did with the previous one, in that folder. You know, for me, for now, I'm just going to throw it onto my desktop because it's, yeah, this is a test. But in that example, I would put it in the folder where all our footage is, all this entire project is kept. So we open that and we create. So it's just popped to my other screen, but we'll drag across. Here we go. So with DaVinci, can you all see that? I know it'll probably be a bit small. I can only make it, so if I make it bigger, like the UI doesn't scale, just the window scale. So hopefully this will be clear enough for you. At the bottom of the screen, there are several tabs which let you cycle through different workspaces. A workspace is just a different way of looking at the footage, and they are utilized for different stages of the project. 90% of the work will all be done in the edit workspace, as you might imagine from like editing software. But as I say, because DaVinci was initially created as coloring software, it has probably the single most powerful coloring suite of any of the software. And it's not something we're really going to dive into too deeply, because it's literally its own career. Do you know what I mean? It truly is. But we might have a little look at, say, like brightening up. If maybe you've recorded something that's a little dark, I think that's a classic example where like, I could have used a bit more bright. So you'd probably start off either in the media or the edit, or the cut or the edit. Cut and edit are basically just a simplified version of the edit. So, you know, I'm not exactly sure why you would bother spending much time in cut, but a lot of it can do to be with if you've got a very small screen and you can't get everything on it. It's like in Adobe, the first thing you would do is want to import some. So we've got some a media pool, and I would go and grab the footage from the folder we created. So TeamBA, content day, footage, and I will say like I will grab this one and I'll add it to the media pool. It's going to say, hey, do you want to change the frame rate? This is kind of what we discussed about creating when you create a timeline. It's going to say, do you want me to use the frame rate the you know of this file? And the answer is yes, generally speaking. I'll give you a quick once over with kind of how that works. Essentially, video is just many photos. Does that make sense? So we talked about frames per second. It's actually just showing you a very fast slideshow, and it just, the brain just goes, oh, it's movement, you know. But your frames per second, your FPS, lets you do different things. So in the UK, we film at 25 frames a second. Cinema was always shot at 24. In America, they tend to use 30 for their online stuff. Video games, you tend to run at about 60. all these different things, people like there's different reasons you might do shoot at different frame rates, but as a general rule of thumb, if you're in the UK, 25 is the one you would go for. But it is possible if you're receiving footage from people's phones and cameras, they will be wrong, the different sizes and different frame rates. This is not the end of the world. It can mean on big like audio might like slowly like out of sync time, but in short, especially online projects, if someone's just sent you a little clip of like someone walking down or a train pulling into the station, it's fine. Like it doesn't matter. I will just explain that that's often what it's asking. Like, oh, should we change it to match the footage? And the answer is yes. If you shot in a higher frame rate and you slow it down, that's actually how you get slow motion footage, because you filmed at, let's say, 100 frames in a second, but then you play it back at 25 frames, meaning that it would take 4 seconds. And that is how you get slow motion footage. And you scale that up, and eventually you shoot at like 1,000 frames a second. And that's how you get those like super slow mo shots. So I have a file. This is the preview. And what I might do is right click on it. And I'm going to say, yeah, look, create new timeline from selected clip. I can do that, or I could probably drag it in and it will create it, which is, it's looking similar. Yeah, people kind of, oh, it looks similar to the previous one. So here we go, Maddie. Also, you can just grab and you can drag it around. So like, there you go, problem solved already. Yeah, like, so this is Luke and Libby chatting.
We can
right now. I think an interesting thing here is probably DaVinci is like defaulted this to actually square. You can see there's a black box here. So let's see if I can change that. If I open up in the bottom right corner, there's a little cog, little wheel settings right here. And if I click on that, it brings up these settings. And first of all, there's a tick box here for vertical resolution. So it's a phone video, it's vertical, it's not horizontal. So I'm going to click on, and then I'm going to select 2160 times 3840. That is just the resolution of 4K. It doesn't really matter. You could use 1080p, you could use 720p. This was shot K, so I will put it into 4K. But really all you're trying to do is match whatever you kind of filmed it in. And if you've got different resolutions, it doesn't do much. You can scale up, you can scale down. But if 90% of the footage was shot in one thing, just pick that. So that looks good. It's in 25 frames a second. I've just changed the monitoring to match. That's basically saying like, what am I going to do? I'm like, yeah, brilliant. So we've got it the right resolution in the right frame rate. So hopefully I save this. It changes. It becomes smaller. We can like readjust. Do you remember I was saying like how everyone's might look slightly different? You can kind of grab and pull and like move the boxes around. I've found that DaVinci doesn't move as nice as Premiere, mostly probably because it's got these different tabs. It's trying to encourage you to kind of use those tabs, if that makes sense. But let's go back to the edit tab. So we've got this here. We'll sit over to the beginning. And we'll do what we did at the first bit, which is we'll look at the audio and we go, this is where they start talking. And now either I would click at the end and drag in like we did before, or in DaVinci, I think it's Command B, and that gives me the blade tool, as it were, and it has cut it, but still here, if that makes sense. So if you look at this, Maddie, look, I've taken this bit from the beginning and I've put it into now. So you can move all your footage around. But I might delete that, and either I could drag it, or probably, yeah, I can click there and hit delete and it will move it over for me. So wonderful. We've taken off that dead space at the beginning. Probably worth going to the end and doing the same. So drag that over. Now what I might do is go, maybe it's not quite loud enough.
Going in the same direction.
So in the top right, we've got this little properties panel. There's video and the tab over audio. And I might just choose the audio slightly louder, just a little bit, just so it's easier for everyone.
The first thing I'd say is to have a really clear and
And now maybe we're into maybe adding some music again, yeah? So I'll bring up my folder. I'll grab my music. I'll drag that in. You can see that it comes in very loud. That's one of the things. If you drag over in DaVinci auto plays, which I find rather annoying because it's just like you just get randomly attacked by like really loud music. But I'll grab that, I'll drag it and I'll put it below. I will then take this, I'll go over to the volume and I will drag it down. You can see it getting smaller, kind of the waveforms, and now it should be quieter.
And can start to breathe from the start.
Still a little louder, personally, so maybe I'll bring it down even less.
So that we're all going in the same direction.
Lovely. Can everyone hear that as well? Because we've got a new program. Yeah, everyone's happy? Lovely. So now, what would we do? We want to add some text, we said before. Up in the top of here, you've got different things like the effects and the index and the sound library, which you shouldn't have any of. The main one you'll want is the media pool, which is what we were looking at, which is where your clips are, and probably the effects. And the effects will have kind of different things. And this is one of the nice reasons that you're going to use is that it has a lot of really quite nice pre-made animations. So a classic thing that you might want is what's called a lower third. And can you kind of see that where it's you can imagine the name of their job, right? I can just grab this, drag it on top. There it is. And then I might just click on it and I could change this to, Luke and TeamBA. Yeah, you might do whatever, you might do all sorts. You can make it smaller, bigger. Like yes, of course, we've got an L taking up the entire screen, but you kind of see my point. If I don't like that, I could probably, I'm imagining, hit Command Z and undo, which is just Control Z, copy paste, all those kind of classic shortcuts from Word. There's usually a version of it in all your software. So if you do something like, oh, I've accidentally deleted the text and I really like text, I can just undo it with the Control command, and super handy. Then let's say we're happy with that. We've got a bit of this. Maybe we go to media pool. I want to add in another shot. Those are my emails. I want to add in some more footage, perhaps. Here's me giving a lecture. Look at that. Oh, brilliant. And what I would probably do with this is kind of, you can drag around, or can I even? There we go. If I hold Alt, usually Alt means a single select. So you can see how I've actually just selected the audio there. Sorry, Erin, I was looking at the wrong screen.
No, you're fine, don't worry. I was just going to ask, can you do subtitles within this program? Will it do it like automatically for you?
Almost certainly, yes. When I use Premiere, it has an automated captioning tool, but I will say that I have yet to find any that do it really accurately, that you will have to go through and manually like catch things, because usually it's things like company names and anagrams that it will catch. I would say that it is it's a near certainty that you can, but often I will say that from my specific workflow, one of the things that we tend to do is that we have a different team. And I know you guys won't, but I'll just kind of explain how a lot of this works. Is that you export in a high quality file, kind of like what Tom was saying, and then I'll send it to the team, the graphics designers, who when the video is signed off, they will add actually the element of like text and graphics, because you probably find that you get a lot of very specific, it needs to be this logo, that thing. But there's nothing wrong with, because I think you mentioned earlier cut, didn't you guys, right? And there's certain products that are 100% really good at specific tasks. And if you're happy, like the video, you can export it and then just add it into other things and add the captions. And that's not you kind of jerry-rigging it. It's not the wrong way to do it. That used to be the entire premise of this software, was that you would often edit in Premiere and you would go and send it to DaVinci to do the color. and then afterwards you might round trip it all the way back to add in captions and things from elsewhere. So I would
Yeah, well, that's
imagine.
what I do actually. On the videos I've made before, I've done them in Canva normally, and then
Yeah.
I've put them through Clipchamp, and that has an automatic
Yeah.
thing, so it'll like bring up the
And
subtitles. But I
that
still have
is-
to go through them and change, like you say, words
Yes,
and
yeah.
commas and
That
whatnot.
is very,
But yeah,
very kind of standard, fair.
Yeah.
I will say that, like as I say, Adobe now has an automated one that you have to do all that with, and I can't swear to it that this one does, but kind of be surprised if it doesn't. And if you want, I can have a quick Google after I've done this, and we can have a look at it,
yeah.
because I think at this point as well, subtitles is a very, excuse me, is a classic thing that always needs to be added. But what I would say is, don't ever feel like if you're having to export it and then like run it into another program that you're like doing it wrong. That actually very recent that all these programs could do it in one. Like that's a very new thing, and what was basically happened is, because now, like say, Adobe charges subscriptions, they don't need to sell you individual products. They've just got you. So they're like, oh, we'll just combine all of this into one problem. But we'll take a look at that, because it's
okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
no problems at all. So throw this on, kind of like we said, think of it like layers of paper. Yeah. So you've got your initial thing, they're talking, you've got the text.
So Libby, as our designer, what are the things that we can do to help our clients save time and money?
So the first thing I'd say is to have a really clear and concise brief.
There you go. Very genuine reactions there to my presentation. Let's say here's an example of something you might want to learn. Video transitions. So this is in the same place up top in the kind of effects tree. I would avoid using transitions. I think the classic like unironically, you know, when everyone used to like learn like PowerPoint and everyone started doing like star wipe and stuff, and now it just looks really awful. But it does, for whatever reason, like it does have this sort of, you know, where like you can star wipe and stuff. I don't think you'll ever really use that unless you're making a specific, try and use it in a trendy way, but I doubt you'll be using like these presets. But there are certain things, for example, like a cross dissolve, which is your classic like fade in. Yeah. You might fade in and out. It's a possibility. You'll also might do that with audio, where if you wanted to in visual, you can do a crossfade. And let's say I want the music to fade in. I could add it to here. And now the music.
So Libby, as our designer, what
and you could grab these and drag it out longer. I want the music to really sort of fade in.
So Libby, as our designer, what are the things that we can do to help our clients save time and money?
So the first thing.
So we do this, we add more. So you've got your text, you've got your titles, you've got your music, you've added in extra footage. You maybe fade the footage in, you could fade it out. At this point, let's say you just kind of rinse and repeat this, if that makes sense. You might decide that I don't like what Libby says here, so I'm gonna Command B and Blade. I'm gonna cut this bit out, right? And I'll drag that back there. But now we've got a bit of a jump. I don't like this. So what I'll do is I'll take the footage and I'll hide the jump under the footage, because it's like the pieces of paper. Yeah, I can't see that there's a break. So the more footage you have, the more you do. And this is why what's called B-roll, like cutaway footage. Let's say you're talking about a train station opening. You would then go film lots of clips of that. And that is used, one, to add context and demonstrate and keep visual interest, but also help you cut and change. We could slice, and providing that we can cover those things, and that like you would cut it where it sounds nice, if that makes sense, like the end of a person's sentence or whatever. That
is to have a really clear.
You wouldn't know that,
and
like Libby might have
brief
gone on
from
the whole tangent
so that we're all.
then
great idea.
Second thing,
and so that's part of the kind of sleight of hand of editing, is trying to hide your edit to make it feel seamless. But I would imagine, with the exception of the cutaways, captions. This is basically it. Now, let's say, just to finish off, we'll do once more. I'd go into my footage. I'd find my call to action. I'd pull that in on the end. I'd come to it. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's the right size. Wonderful.
Beautiful.
And I'd say with that, oh, it's a bit black at the beginning. So maybe I'd drag it down until it comes in. I'd put it there. And then maybe I'd do exactly what we just discussed. Get that little crossfade, put it on.
Cool.
It just fades into them talking. The music fades out. Bang, at the end, the logo comes up. And that might be your video, if that makes sense.
Mike, can I ask a quick question?
Of course, please do.
In iMovie, I used to be able to extend, so where you've got the music track, it finishes before the end of the film.
Yes.
And I used to be able to drag the music track so it finished at the same time as the film. I'm assuming I can still do that in this.
So, depending on your kind of the music itself, there's a few options. Old school option, which was what we always had to do, was that you would grab it, you would find, or like, let's say they're the same, but this one's louder. Let's say I can, hopefully, maybe this will let me copy it. Yes, if you drag Alt, it will allow you to copy, or you can do your classic Word document, Control C, Control V. There you go. What you would do is you would listen for the beat. You know, most music's like 4/4, for example. You would find that, you would line them up, you'd cut one off. So I might, for the sake of this, that's on the beat. This is on the beat. I would drag them together and I would add a little crossfade. However, 9 times out of 10, you will want to build your piece around the music. With an exception of maybe if it's just a view and you've got like very low level music, you can't just drag music and it's indefinite. With the exception that Premiere has just released an AI tool where it automatically remixes it as it goes. So what I suggest,
I actually could do that. I can literally click on that end and drag it. I mean, it was when it was like it's the repeating music, so it's just they just extend
so I think probably what that is you've probably got music from inside the software, I would imagine, perhaps.
Yes.
Right? Yes. So what that would be is a perfect looped track that they are doing, like Control C, and basically what they're doing is this, where it just goes and goes and goes because it's a perfect loop. That is a bit of a rarity that does tend to come with kind of older software where the idea that you could get your own audio was kind of crazy. I'll give you this is a good segue actually to go into the audio. As we mentioned earlier, like music really, really impacts the feel of a track. You know, like this song, it's quite upbeat. If I grab it and just make it a bit louder.
Televisions is having one person
it will really impact the vibe of the movie. Whereas if you had like somber music underneath, it sounds really basic. You'll have basic film comprehension from watching, you know, decades and decades of movies. But when you're thinking about it, you'll actually find that a huge amount of your time will be spent trying to find the correct music for any video. And you will also probably all suffer through the idea of listening to so many poor quality stock music. The reason we'll suffer through this is because it can really have a great impact, and there are certain sites that you can use to kind of source music. You want to be careful not to use any copyrighted material. You know, you can't just slap Coldplay on there, it will get taken down really, really quick. I use a site called Invatu, which has audio and video that I can license.
Can you spell that, Mike?
Yes, I can.
Can you spell
well, I can do one better. I'll bring it up here.
Just remember, it's really small on the screen.
So ENVA2. This is really useful because it lets me look at different tracks. I can search by, you know, maybe I want an intro, or I want an epic, or I want upbeat, or, you know, for some reason, like background music. These are all like pre-generated kind of tags that they know you might want. It also lets us, you know, kind of buy stock video and things of that nature. Most of them will have like a license. I don't know, let's say like 50 quid a year. It's honestly, it's probably more than that at this point. Everything's expensive these days. But audio is one of the best investments you can possibly in really every sense of the word, whether that's like buying physical equipment or whether it's spending a bit of money for like a good song. You don't tend to buy individual songs, you tend to buy plans. Like you can kind of see like upgrade to the annual plan here. There are other sites, there are free ones, less and less so these days because people that are making music, they're trying to make it as a bit of passive income. Another site we tend to use is called Ben Sound. And saying they do have free music on, but it's a lot less updated. But it's an option, and we've used it for years. We're currently one of our internal kind of projects, like maybe sourcing new sound libraries. Art list as in ART, like a list of artwork. Art list is another one, and I appreciate that a lot of you guys are probably in a position where funds are limited, and the idea of like buying an audio library sounds like but unironically, if you're making you're using music, like, and it is one of those investments that will pay off. I would recommend it before buying a camera. I would recommend it before even like paying for like editing software. Like you can use DaVinci for free, you can do all that, but like music, it's worth the investment because done it, you can use it for every single project. I don't even have to think these days. I just like, oh, okay, I've got a video, I click on Envato, I go through, like I'm looking for something upbeat, and then you'll have like genres and stuff, or upbeat, maybe I want it to be like opera, or maybe I want it to be rock or electronic. And that level of flexibility, customization is so important because it will allow you to like genuinely craft things, opposed to, okay, we got 3 songs on this free library and we're going to use them again and again and again. You're going to drive your viewers insane. Do you know what I mean? Like, but let's say you've selected a track. One of the big things you would often do is actually edit to the music. I think with interviews, this is less so a thing. But for example, am I allowed to show you this video? I might not be, so I don't want to get in trouble. But okay, we were just doing a 30-minute promo, which if you check out Instagram will probably come out in a few days or so. We'll link to it for WMT. And the way I built that was by, they might just like clear the song and I dragged it in. And it was this song, which is why I have access to it at the moment because it was there. So I was like, oh, okay, perfect. I grabbed this. This is probably even a little long for this. So I'd like bring it down just a tad. And then I started stacking. I had to get all these different clips and I'm like cutting to the beat. So I'm listening to the music on every beat. I'm like adding and cutting and like trying to build the video around the music, opposed to the other way. For interviews, it's slightly different, as I say. But if you're making let's say an opening video, you want to celebrate or promote something, leaning into the power of the music and like kind of letting that really help and like drive the emotion of the piece is super powerful and super useful. But as I say, it comes with a caveat that you kind of need a way to source the music. And that's basically it. So unfortunately, to kind of circle all the way back, Maddie, just dragging it out indefinitely, not really such a thing. As I say, the remix tool has just been added to, so it is coming back weird way, like how you were both before and ahead of your time.
there is a sneaky way around it if you want
go
to.
On, mate.
Well, I say you'd also have to, if you're working on a Mac, you just use GarageBand and you create your own music, which will then loop. So you can loop your own track and do it that way. That's
an interesting one. I would say, I mean, that is brilliant, Tom. I couldn't make.
It's quite cheeky and it's low level.
Yeah, yeah. It's like if you learn to become a musician in some capacity.
Yeah.
But no, you are right. I mean, this is one of the though, Tom, you kind of hit on there, which circles back to like the captions thing of like you using multiple softwares isn't like wrong or broken, and like using taking a video and doing the editing here and then maybe going into like Canva to add motion graphics isn't like the wrong way to do it. That's something I kind of have to emphasize, is that part of the reason I wanted to show you multiple softwares in today's kind of like call is because being able to work in different is super useful. I'm kind of very fortunate that for my like role, I'm predominantly out shooting, and then I'll come and I'll do like what I call like the kind of the skeleton. I'll add the music, I'll add the footage, and then I send it often like off to get like graphics and things added. But inherently what that means is it's getting exported and re-imported to other places all the time, and that if you need to use CapCut or Canva or anything that you're comfortable with, you're not like doing it wrong, if that makes sense. Like that is the name of the beast. There may be ways to do all sorts. These packages are getting more and more, but the big thing is that if you're comfortable in it, then like it's not. I export all my dialogue and I through like an enhancer that's like a third party enhancer, but I just think it does a better job. Adobe has an inbuilt version, but I just don't think it's as good. And you'll kind of learn like what is important to you when you're editing. Like, do you really care about this specific thing? Do you, people used to, as I say, would round trip to like this software specifically just because of how powerful the color is. So I'll kind of give you a little example here. Let's say we've dragged this in, we put it over here. It's nice, it's great, but like, oh, I don't feel like they match for whatever reason. So I might go to the color tab, right? And I might go, oh, it's a bit bright. The windows in the background are quite bright. What can I do about that? Well, maybe I'd grab the highlights down here and start to pull the highlights down. And you can kind of see that, you don't want to like go too far in either direction, but just very subtly being like, okay, that's 0. Pull it down just a little bit. Nice, but maybe now like the blacks aren't deep enough. So maybe I'd go and add like a little bit into the shadows and pull the shadows down. So like Libby's top is a little darker. And then maybe I'd want to hit the saturation tool and just add a bit more saturation so there's a bit more color. And I just did that with the 3 little tabs on the bottom. There is so much more in here. Like it is so in depth. You've got all this thing about adding nodes. You've got curves where you can like change like how like the like this would be called linear editing, and this is non-linear because like it doesn't work in straight lines. You can grab and change the colors. Do you know what I mean? Like, but it's unlikely you're gonna want to do any of that. Yeah, it is not really necessary for the vast majority of stuff, but there is likelihood is make it slightly brighter, make it slightly darker, make it slightly more colorful. These are just down here: shadows, highlights, saturation. There is also for the top temperature and tint, which is like if you shot it and it looks really blue for whatever reason, you could like pull it back to orange because color temperature is a big thing. Sometimes you'll go somewhere and the lights will have a green cast to them. So what you might do is add more pink back in and kind of pull it back into middle. But if you're shooting on your iPhone, it's probably going to do a decent job of like keeping it basically where you want it. That is the trade-off with like phones, is that they tend to be really good at like automatically doing stuff, but don't do a whole lot of control. But from a social media standpoint, that is not the end of the world. That's in fact pretty good. Do you know what I mean? Like, so bit of color, not too much color, just make it brighter, make it darker. Bit of audio, not too much, mostly just making it louder, making it quieter. As I say, you probably want the music at around, I'd say like a third of the volume, if not less, depending on who you've got. If you've got someone who's really speaking and is very clear, you can have a bit more punchy music. But if you've got someone that maybe is a little quieter and they're not quite as confident on edge the music back, keep it quiet. Text, as I say, you can add this text over here. There's many different forms. But of course, the big one is if I left you now, you wouldn't be able to export it. So how do we export in this? We go to, on the bottom right, the deliverable tab, which is this rocket, because I guess rockets export stuff. Up top here, we have kind of what we were talking about earlier, which is the codecs. But what's nice with this is you can scroll across and you can just click on like YouTube or TikTok or Vimeo, however you want it. So let's say I'm exporting for YouTube and it's 1080p, or maybe I even want it to be 4K and I just change that. I give it a nice little name, test 3. I choose where I want to put it. Now you'd put it in a folder. I'd even create another folder called like exports in that folder. But for now, I will just send it to the desktop so that we can see it. And then it's not done yet. Bottom left, add to render queue. I think this is a bit of a strange way around doing it, but it's how they do it. They add it to a queue. You don't have to export it now. You can just crack on with your day, keep doing other stuff, other projects. But I think the likelihood is that you are doing a video and you export it as quick as possible. So you would cover, you click on the top right, and if there was a few versions, let's say you did a high quality and a low quality version, kind of like what you were on about earlier, Tom, I would select, you could do individuals or you can highlight both, render all. And now it's processing. Now it's going through. The reason you would have a render queue, the purpose of this is that if you're doing lots and lots of videos over a day, rendering like locks up your computer essentially. It uses all the resources. So what you would do is maybe you'd render over lunch or render at night. It used to be that because computers were not as powerful that you would never render in the day. You do all this and went for the day, you would hit render and you'd come back and hopefully everything would have rendered overnight. But these days it's well fast, and that was obviously a very short video. So those have exported, and if I were to open up my Finder and go desktop, here is a new test 3, which we just made. We've got our text down there, we've got our cutaways, and we've got our logo at the end. Yes, that is basically the kind of the real fundamentals of editing in DaVinci. So does anyone, yeah, Paul, I can see you've got a question.
Yeah, I've had a look at my version of DaVinci. For some reason, across the bottom where you went through all those tabs, it says icons only, and I can't, it's grayed out icons and labels. I think most of them are obvious, but can you just run through what each of those 5 or 6 ones actually do? I think, you know, music's music and...
Yes, absolutely. So you've got, the first one is import, basically. It's sometimes called ingestion. I think this one's called import. And this is where people would be like, you can see here, actually, it's got my hard drives built in, like into the top left. So I could go through and I could pull through. But often for me, I happen to have my Finder and I'm just working here and I'll just drag it in. So it's useful. And if you've got a very specific system, I think, but I think a lot of people skip it, frankly, because it's a niche tool that isn't really all that needed. Cut, similar. It's a basic stripped down version of the edit tool. You've got a much bigger panel, your media, and this would often be called like assembly. And this might be the job done by so like in Avid, that other fancy super program I was talking about, like the kind of maybe the first editor, which would maybe be the kind of junior editor. They would do is they would be going through, they'd ingest all the footage, they'd come through, they'd start assembling like just the basic, like lining things up, getting things connected. But I think for most of us, we don't have enough footage to kind of require that. Again, you know, you're probably working with like footage all shot on one day by one, you know, there's a good chance. But either way, it's a stripped down basic version. Then you go into the edit tab, which is where we were. This is where you've got like, you know, you kind of extra effects and cards and things of this nature. I really feel that the edit and the cut tab are basically the same thing. I think a lot of people feel the same. Then we've got, I think this is called Fairlight, and it's their special effects tab. It allows you to make custom things like, if you've ever heard of After Effects from Adobe, this is kind of graphics, effects. This is very niche for that kind of style of custom creation. And I don't know many people that tend to use it. Most people that if they're in this kind of place, they will tend to use Adobe's After Effects, but it is there. And by all accounts, it's pretty good. I can't say I've spent any time here personally. Color tab is the next one over. That's what we just looked at. As I say, you've got most of the time you would spend here, I would think would be down in the bottom left. You could click on the clips, you know, select your clips, and then you could drag around if you wanted on this little timeline here to look at what you're looking at. and then you would go in and you might alter your colors, yeah. And then the next one over is music. This gives you much more functionality with regards to mixing music. You've got all the different tracks here. You can do add different effects, things like noise reduction, gates, things of that nature. Yet again, I think most of you will just be like recording on your phone and they'll just be kind of embedded. So there's not any need to dial this because you have basic audio controls up here in the kind of top left, where you can do like pan left and right, pitch, music, like there's even equalizers and stuff in here. So this is more than enough, I would say, for you. So I don't feel there'll be much need to go into the music tab. And then the final one, which is the little rocket ship, that's the delivery. This is where it all comes together. Top left is where you select kind of what you want to export in. You've got custom export, but as I say, scrub across and you'll find YouTube, Vimeo, TikTok, and you'll mention just to get you clear that there are presets for sending it to Final Cut, Premiere. This is what I was on about, where like sending it from different programs to do different things is kind of built into the kind of the ethos of editing. Not everything gets done in one system. And then, yes, I say hit the add to render queue and you can render in the top right. So I would say that if you were just in its most simple form, it would work in the edit tab and it would work in the delivery tab. And you might step the color tab just to like brighten or darken things. But that would be it functionally. I think workspaces are very personal and they depend on like how many monitors you have and what the size of your screen is and what you need. If you've got a small up screen, utilizing different workspaces can be quite valuable. I've got like a big monitor and I like everything in kind of one spot. And that's where like kind of point of the different workspaces are. It's to let you focus in on like the specific elements that you're doing, but many of them are not required. And just because you don't know what's going on in one, like don't worry. These programs are, you could be using them for like years and years and years and you'd never know everything they could do. Not to mention that they're updated so regularly now, they're always getting new features. It has been it's interesting to see how like much they have updated recently, and I think I'm sure everyone is tired of it banging on like AI, but these AI tools are coming in like real fast now, and they are like really kind of changing the way a lot of editing is working. So you find that like the automated captions and stuff gets added to everything. I think just because we've got less than 10 minutes left, Erin, I can take a look if you want me to, but I'm not entirely certain if there is automated captions.
No, that's okay. I mean, what you explained earlier was fine, and I can always have a little look myself.
Wonderful, yeah.
I guess if anyone has more questions or anything.
I've just had a little look. It's only available in the paid for version.
I did wonder. Unfortunately,
the basic version you can either do it manually or import a file.
Yeah, so I would suggest, thank you for that, Paul. Appreciate that. I would suggest doing what you're already doing, like exporting and round tripping. As I say, that's how we've kind of done this for years, and like it is nice as well because what it does mean is you've always got like a high quality, like clean version, which, as I mentioned previously, you might not need it for this project, but having access to that for future projects is super valuable.
Definitely.
And then uploading these things, I would always say that, like, as a final kind of bit of info, good bit of advice, is that it's real dangerous to have everything on just one hard drive. I would suggest if you buy a hard drive, buy a quick hard drive and buy a cheaper, slower hard drive, a bigger hard drive, and back up periodically. It's one of these things where it can even like keep one at the office and one at home or something like that. It's a bit much, but it sounds daft. But like if there's a fire, for example, and all my stuff burnt down, like luckily we keep a backup at a storage unit so that there is, at least for the vast majority of there's always like a kind of a backup, and a digital backup is also useful, which is I talk about that clean version, export a version with no music and no graphics. and upload to whatever site you use as well. We personally use Vimeo, but you might use Google Drive, Dropbox, things of that nature.
Right, can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
I'm under the impression that if I save something to my OneDrive or our shared drive,
Yeah.
that it's backed up.
Yeah, in a lot of respects. So basically what a OneDrive is just somebody else's hard drive, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, there's just a big server, like a huge hard drive center, and if you send it there, the issue with just having that is that sometimes their hard drives break. Does that make sense? Like do you know what I mean? Like it's rare, but like I lost a whole chunk of a Google Drive, just like an entire folder was just gone, and it was because they had something happened, it damaged. It's rare, it's really rare, and I wouldn't sweat it too much, but if it's important, keep a backup. You know, if it's just fast-paced, quick turnover social media content, which doesn't really have any like real long-term kind of impact on you, that's okay. But I would say if it's like a pretty big event, maybe you're doing a film or you think you might need the footage in the future, it's worth taking a little bit of time just to have it in a couple of places. You know, it doesn't need to be anything fancy or anything special, but it's the amount of times I've been like really lucky that I've had like a slightly older version. You know, it might not even need to be dated version, just the raw footage alone can like pull you out of a fire if you need to. And so yeah, it's just digital and two tangibles is the best way to do it. I appreciate, like, even I'm not perfect with it, you know, like I've got current projects that I started on and they're kind of like the cameras still, so I guess that counts as a backup, but I do need to go through and back things up, and you'll never be perfect, but you only need like one scare to get quite good. You know what I mean? Like, because it can be heartbreaking especially if you spent like months working on a project and then you just come in one day and it's just like file corrupted. Just like, oh, that hurts.
I remember losing my dissertation at university, and that was like,
yeah. You know,
yeah, okay.
It is, and it's that way, but like just to reiterate, like the value isn't just the like kind of pound sterling that it costs to get the hard drive. The value is what it took to make the footage. You know, if they had to drive like an antique train into your station or whatever, the footage on there, it could be like, if you had to remake that, would be worth tens of thousands of pounds. You know what I mean? So like it does become that type of thing of like, even what I just did there, right? I slipped through this hard drive. I don't have to worry about it. But if I'd have dropped the bigger hard drive, the mechanical one, that would have me sweating. It's that type of thing where like, so always worth investing in, if you can, solid state, because there's no moving parts, and always worth investing in a cheap backup. And like you say, your OneDrive, perfect example of a digital backup, another great place to have. Also, because you can link those, can't you? So do you have this footage? You can just send them the link. Brilliant, perfect, super convenient. Rather than like, oh yeah, in a storage unit, I do have an old hard drive that has it on. It's not helping anyone. So a digital cleanup and a tangible backup, super handy. Much like your dissertation, you don't want to lose it. I think we're wrapping up about 5 minutes. Does anyone have any other questions? Anything I can help answer with? I do appreciate that. That was a lot of information. Do you know what I mean?
It's not a big question. It was just a thought, actually. You know about having multiple screens.
Yes.
Are you able to have? You might not know if you haven't been using it as much, but DaVinci over two screens. So, for instance, you could have
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, the way I currently have it set up is that I keep. If I was like not on this, I would have my on the left. Like if I'm looking here, I've got my big screen. On the left, I've got the laptop on a stand, right? And I keep the my Finder window and my emails, maybe my worksheets like that I'm referring to, any let's say like storyboards or scripts or things of that nature, I'll pull to that. And but almost all of them have the ability to pull out different things. I used to have on another setup like a vertical like kind of a monitor, like I'd just taken a monitor and it was on its side, and I used that as like a library, or like where I could just look at all the footage, or as I say, for Word documents, because they would be like very big, because they'd be like the proper shape. Yeah, you can almost always customize your workspace because editors just love doing it. And a lot of people, one of the classic things they do is they have a separate monitor which is just full screened and is the video, if that makes sense. So they'll have like kind of the timeline like we've been working on, but they'll have just a separate thing. So when they want to review something back, they can just turn and play. And it's one of these. I think that's a bit extreme, and you don't really need it. But if you've got the privilege and luxury of having a few extra screens knocking around, it actually can really speed up your workflow. It's super handy.
I have 2 screens and I can't work on one anymore.
Yeah, this is exactly it. Like, and 9 times out of 10, it's actually not even like, as I say, 2 screens for the editing software. It's like having your reference email or, you know, whatever, or just like this, a Zoom call where you can be working and doing it. So, yeah, hey, if you can invest in a second screen or just steal it from somebody, definitely worthwhile. Anyone else? Anything I can help with? As I say, I wouldn't expect you to kind of fully have that. What I might do is I might just drop in the chat now, guys, actually a link to a basics tutorial that was a little bit for the 2025 DaVinci, where they will go through just kind of what we did today, but obviously you can pause and stop and watch back. And there's so many wonderful resources for DaVinci, which is part of the reason I recommend it. There's a wealth of both free and paid courses. And if you have a question, you can just, because it's a well-known piece of software, you can just Google it, and there will be somebody there who has had the answer. Band V, enter. Hopefully you guys just got that in the chat.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Mike. Just wanted to say thank you for today's session. It's been really, really helpful.
No, thank you all very much. I confess, I was a bit racking my brain to think about the best way to do this, because I was like, oh, I'm trying to teach them a software I don't use. But yeah, I hopefully it was useful, and I hope that seeing both Adobe and DaVinci give you an understanding that, like, you don't really need to be afraid of the softwares. Like, they're all very similar, and there's a way to do kind of everything. And if you can use Canva and CapCut, you can use these. There's just more. Do you know what I mean? That's all it is, I think, like, Tom, this is probably a niche example, but you know, from a music background, like, a mixing desk looks really intimidating until you realize it's 20 versions of the exact same thing. So with all this sort of stuff, even though it can do a lot more, you might only ever use a fraction of it, and that's absolutely fine. If you can make the thing you want to make, then you're an editor, and you're doing it properly.
Can I just say, Mike, I really appreciate the fact that you ended up breaking this down over 2 sessions, because I know with the first session it was about actually how to shoot the film.
Yeah.
But this is the bit that I needed the most, to be honest, was the editing.
Lovely.
So yeah, I really appreciate it. And just having had a tiny weeny bit of experience beforehand just means that I was able to ask you some questions as well. So that'll make my life so much easier. So
thank you. And, like, please, if you have any questions, as I say, guys, like, do feel free to kind of email. I do think. Sorry, please go on.
I was just going to say, one question for you. How do we go about getting the recording? Because if I don't come back to this until a month, I will have forgotten everything you've said.
No problems. So I'll end it now. It will be saved, and it will probably be, I think it'll upload to, like, it's on Luke's account, as you could tell by me calling Luke at the beginning. We'll send that out, and I'll probably just email it in to the original train. But that might take a second, just because it's quite a long one. They take a little bit to, like, upload. But I'll make sure it's sent out to you guys probably tomorrow, I would imagine.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much.
But yeah, thank you very much, guys. I hope that had some value, and I hope mostly my goal was to brilliant. I mostly my goal was to kind of demystify a little bit and be like, it is complicated, it is frustrating. We've all been there when we're using a bit of software we don't know what to do, but the amount of resources that are online, if you have a quick Google, like, how to do X or Y, are in any software, there's such brilliant like, creators out there that you'll find the answer. So yeah, thank you all once again.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
Thanks,
really
Mike.
appreciate it.
Brilliant.
Thank you
Very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye
Everyone.